Hi, in this lesson, you'll learn how to add and remove from vectors. As learned previously, vectors are a data structure that allows you to hold multiple values in a single variable. In this lesson, you're going to explore how vectors are dynamic and can grow and shrink in size. As mentioned before, there are two ways to create vectors, either with or without initial values. In this lesson, you're going to see examples of both as you learn to add additional values to vectors. The main way to add additional values to vectors is using the pushback command. The pushback command will add a new value at the end of the vector. There are a few other ways to add to a vector, but we will not be exploring those in this course. Let's look at a quick example where you start with an initial vector with 4 elements. Using the pushback command, you can add a 5th element to the vector. Notice how this new element is at the end of the vector. The vector grows in size by 1, and the new value is put in that place. Let's look at another example. This time you start with an empty vector and you push the value of 10 into it. If you go to print out the first element, you will see the vector has the 10 that you just placed there. Now let's introduce the size command to help with this example. The size command returns the number of elements in the vector. In this example, size returns 0 since you have not added any elements to the vector yet. Once you put that first value into the vector, the size grows to 1. It's important to note that the indices of the vector always go from 0 to 1 less than the size of the vector. In this case, the vector is size 1, so 1 less than 1 is 0. And that is what we find for the first index. In contrast to adding an element, you can also remove the last element from the vector using the popback command. Since you're only removing an item, the popback command does not take any value as an input. Notice that the last element is removed from the vector and the vector shrinks in size. Let's look again at our size command to help illustrate what's going on here. So initially we have a size of 3, and then we use the popback command. The last element is then removed, and now the size is 2. Remember, the remaining elements have index values of 0 and 1. Now that you know about adding and removing items from a vector, let's practice in the editor. Okay, so we're going to take a look at how we can add and remove from our vectors. So we have a simple sports vector here with 3 values. I want to just print out the size here. So if I go ahead and print our size, we see we have a size of 3. So now let's add in a value using the pushback command. So we're going to say sports.pushback, and let's push back lacrosse. Okay, and now if I check out my size, I should see that my size has grown to 4. Okay, now if I want to print out that last element, I can also do that. And I can say last. And remember, our indices, we have a size of 4, so they go from 0 to 3. So I can print my last element by saying sports, and I'm going to say sports.size, which gives me 4, but I want the last one, so I'm going to subtract 1 from that. And then I will do an inline there. Okay, so if I do that, we have that, and we can put a space there for the next time. Okay, now I can also remove from my vector, and I can do that by using the popback command. So just like I did pushback, I'm going to now say sports.popback. And what this does is it removes the last element. Now notice I don't have to pass it any argument there because when I do that, I am removing, so I don't have to give it any kind of parameter. Okay, so now I removed one, And my last element now is basketball, which was my last element originally. Okay, so now what happens though if we said that if I access an element that's out of range, I get some bad values. So what if I do something like this? So I'm going to say, I want to print, so we're going to say sports. Now it has 3 elements at this point. So 0, 1, and 2 are my index values. So what happens if I print sport 3? Well, I said I should get a garbage value, but we want to see what that does. And likewise, what if I use the @3? Well, I'm going to let you figure that one out on your own, so go ahead and play around with that and see what happens.